Good morning. I'm David with EV World News. We're talking about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. And today I'm joined by our founder and chief editor, Bill Moore. How's it going this morning, Bill?
Doing well, thank you. I'm all spiffed up going to a local conference this afternoon on climate. So,
Nice. Nice. Well, we love it. We love it. Anyways, glad you're here. So let's start out talking a little bit about some stuff coming out of China. And there's been some interesting news as China is the world's biggest car market. It's the world's biggest EV market. It's also where most batteries and EV cars are manufactured. And what's kind of happening is the market is being reshaped. And what's happening is General Motors, Volkswagen, SAIC are dropping about 30% of their employees in the Chinese market.
yeah,
General Motors and VW were the dominant automotive companies in China. They were very welcome. They're having a German company and an American company, but they've each since 2019 have dropped an average of 1 million car sales annually.
yeah,
And there's a couple of things. One, there's people are shifting away from Western brands, but mostly they're shifting away from internal combustion engines. And they're swapping those out with domestically made electric vehicle brands such as BYD, and now out of the blue, phone company Xiaomi
yeah.
is entering the play. And this is going to really shake
Doing
things
what
up.
Apple hasn't been able to do.
Right. And we'll cover the Xiaomi thing a little bit more as we go on through the show. But legacy automakers are facing some big decisions about whether to adapt to diminished roles in China and potentially other market or invest billions to catch up. This is even affecting Tesla because Tesla was the dominant EV player in China, and now they're struggling. I shouldn't say they're struggling, but they're being passed up by BYD. And they just reported.
We'll touch on this in a minute.
Yeah. So Tesla just reported, third quarter deliveries that were short of Wall Street guesstimates, but we'll get into that a little bit later. With a giant factory in Shanghai, Tesla started this decade in pole position in China's emerging EV market. Elon Musk's EV company has fallen behind BYD and is facing intense pressure from upstarts like Xiaomi. You get some others like NIO.
Yeah.
There's a few others. I mean, what do we figure? There's over there's 100 EV makers in China. It's kind of like the U.S.
Not all of them automobile. There's a lot of two-wheel, and small industrial type.
So,
but there's a lot. Yeah.
Stellantis sold just 65,000 vehicles in China last year.
Yeah.
That's not really a whole lot. Stellantis used to be called Chrysler. It still confuses me to call it Stellantis.
Yeah.
But it really.
Yeah. The last time when I stayed in Beijing, the last time I was in a hotel, and right across the street was the Chrysler, the Beijing version of the Chrysler building, literally, tall office tower and the big Chrysler logo on it. Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and move on a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about hydrogen, and we're kind of, Bill and I are both kind of on the fence on hydrogen. We see people making, big claims about hydrogen's going to make it and EVs aren't, and all this. And I'm a little dubious about hydrogen because it's a low energy fuel source.
Hard to get, hard to hold on to.
Yeah. And anyways, so this is about Formula One hydrogen prototypes to run on track in the Le Mans buildup. And they started doing this a year ago. And it is a buildup to the 2024 Le Mans. They're having I'm not sure if it's a 1 hour. It says using fuel cells and hydrogen combustion engines will evolve at a sustained pace between 12 and 1 p.m.
Yeah.
And, my question.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, my question here is, how fast can a hydrogen-powered car actually go? Can they compete with with a gas-powered car with the amount of energy?
Yeah, let me take you back in time, because I actually started watching the Le Mans race when Audi introduced for the very first time the e-tron.
Okay.
And this goes back, this is at least a decade or more than a decade, when they was the very first hybrid electric Le Mans car. And there's a certain class, and I'm not that up onto it, but there's various classes that race in that. And this was the very first time they had let this particular class of vehicle race under hybrid power. And it wasn't that, I don't recall how well it did the first time, but it wasn't but a couple of years later that they were winning. So I'm pleased they have, obviously we haven't gotten to all electric, and that's probably way down the road still. But I'm really pleased to see that now they're opening up that same window that they opened up for Audi e-tron a decade ago, that they're now opening that up for the hydrogen vehicles. And it looks like, from what I read, there's going to be a number of cars there. Some of them are going to be powered by fuel cells, and some of them will be using internal combustion engines burning hydrogen. It'll be interesting to see how those two compare. And then at some point, when will they introduce that technology, as they did I think the e-tron is, I think it now runs, I haven't watched it for a couple of years now, but I think, those hybrid electrics are still doing really, really well at Le Mans.
Are we talking a mild hybrid? Or are we talking?
The e-tron, that's a good question. I don't
because a lot of
it's called the kinetic. Originally, they were racing cars that had, basically it was energy recovery through the battery, through the braking system, because on the Le Mans track, it's constant stop and go. Not stop, but it's they got to go around all these curves on that track, and they're using their brakes all the time. So they put this system in to capture that energy and then put that in the battery to then save it, so that can accelerate, better out of the curves and things. So is it a full hybrid? I don't think so, but that technology paved the way for what became Audi's all-electric cars.
Well, the reason I'm asking is I know, like in Mercedes AMG cars, a lot of them are mild hybrids, which doesn't contribute at all to the gas mileage. It's simply designed to give them an extra boost in 0 to 60, and it basically just improving their race time a little bit while they're waiting. So they don't have that same delay that a normal gas car has, right, while they're waiting for the gas to start burning.
Situation, yeah.
Yeah.
But
so
the cars now, the Mercedes that are coming out now that they're selling as fully battery electric, they are fully battery electric.
Right.
But Mercedes has been working on this technology again, going back into the late 1990s, early 2000s, as has been Audi.
Well, I mean, we covered the Mercedes EQX X a couple of weeks ago. That was the experimental car that's getting, what was it, almost 8 miles per kilowatt hour, whereas a Tesla gets about 3.5.
Yeah.
And they had some kind of a Formula One inspired, super efficient 100 kilowatt hour battery pack. But out of that 100 kilowatt hour battery pack, they were getting almost 800 miles of range.
Yeah, they figured that game out, apparently, sounds like.
Yeah. And it was even more aerodynamic than the Aptera. So it had some crazy aerodynamics on the car.
Interesting.
And it looks a little bit more like, from the side, almost like a bullet.
Yeah.
So it really.
Well, they've been playing with that, that technology and super efficient mileage, vehicles for some time now. So I'd have to go back and look up the name of the vehicle, but they've been working on this for quite a while.
So let's talk about our next topic. Sometimes we cover a little bit of aviation, and today's aviation topic is about Japan investing $33 billion for its new in-house hydrogen passenger jet. There's a idea of what it might look like. I don't know what that is underneath it, unless that's some type of.
I could guess that's probably where the hydrogen's stored in some form.
Okay.
Now, whether it's in a compressed cryogenic form, or whether it's they're storing it in some type of like the ThyssenKrupp fuel cell system that's used in submarines. They're storing in some type of a metal form that absorbs, like a sponge absorbs hydrogen. And then, if I remember correctly, you apply a little heat, and that heat then takes and releases the hydrogen out. So you're constantly feeding hydrogen. And it looks like what they're going with is some type of a turbofan engine that is, the combustion, it's combusting the hydrogen rather than a fuel cell system. But it wouldn't surprise me if this doesn't evolve into a couple of different models where you have ducted fans, or you have large counter-rotating type fans running off of electric motors and things. Rolls-Royce is working on both of those, so it wouldn't surprise me that at some point you'll see decisions being made as to which is the more efficient and which causes the least maintenance and things like that, which are important to the airline.
The article mentions a hybrid hydrogen electric, but electric doesn't power turbofans.
No, that's what I'm saying. So you would have, well, technically to start it, it does, but once you get the compressors, well, not the compressors, but in the combustion side of the jet engine, that particular compressor, I guess for want of a better term, feeds through a shaft to drive the forward compressor blade. So technically, but there's work being done on instead of having that aft compressor running the forward compressors, you've got an electric motor up there that's spinning. So I don't know. I think we'll see all different types of variables here to figure out which works best. Again, it comes down to which is the most efficient in terms of energy used, and then which causes the least amount of maintenance, because those are two of the biggest drivers: is maintenance cost on the aircraft and the cost of the fuel and the efficiency with which it's used.
I was going to tell you too, we've been specifically asked for our upcoming TV program to cover electric aviation for them.
Oh,
because I mentioned that you were a pilot, and the people that run the TV channel, they also are a pilot, and so they were really excited about that.
All smart people are pilots.
Yes, there you go. There you go. For just $100,000, you too can go become a pilot. Yeah, for just the low price of $100,000, you a little bit of free time.
Believe me, that won't buy you much of an airplane anymore.
No, I just meant getting your pilot's licenses.
To get the pilot's license. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to change that.
No, I understand that. We're hoping the electric aviation helps, but. I was going to say, Kurt had mentioned something in the chat. So Elon says, hey, they can make 1,000, they could make all the Teslas go 1,000 miles. Do you want to pay for that much battery? Yeah. And then when you add that much weight, then all of a sudden, maybe they're only getting 2.5 miles per kilowatt, and they're just putting in a crazy amount and adding $50,000 to the price.
Yeah.
And it just seems that when you have an electric car that has a 300-mile range, who drives more than 300 miles between gas stations?
Yeah, more than
and that's the weird argument I hear all the time. It's like, well, I don't have to stop because I can do this. And it's like, I'm old. I got to go to the bathroom at least every 3 hours.
You have to find some place along the road to relieve yourself. That's just nature.
Yeah, my favorite thing. So Bill knows, and I don't ever talk about this in the thing, but I play tennis tournaments all the time, and I'll travel across the country or a few hours away in a car, and we'll stop somewhere to eat or get fuel, and I hobble out of the car. It takes me almost a full minute for me to get
Yeah.
my feet and
That's
legs to
why.
feel.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what somebody coming out of a spaceship must feel like. That's why they use young people in spaceships. They don't
Yeah.
take any,
You know
50-year-olds.
what? For us, a long distance drive anymore is over to Des Moines and back. Right?
There you go.
Because
Yeah.
we're the same way. Oh my God, we're stiff and sore. And, yeah.
No, it's kind of a
and I used to,
challenge
by
there.
the way, I used to drive halfway across the country in one day.
Oh, I get it. I've driven Houston to Grand Forks, North Dakota a couple times. So I get
I've
it.
driven from southern West Virginia all the way to, where did we stop? North Dakota, I think, in North Dakota, one day.
Yeah. So I want to discuss something a little different that I found. This was a LinkedIn post by a Michael Dunn, and he called it "The Sudden Death of Detroit and China." We were talking about this a little earlier. And he says the bodies are still warm, the victims are already dead. Natural causes for foul play. GM, Ford, and Jeep, once the darlings of the Chinese consumer, are goners. Sales have collapsed, profits are heading towards zero. In 2023, the Detroit 3 sold 3 million fewer cars in China than they did in 2017. 2.4 million versus 5.4 million. That's 6 straight years of falling sales, and we have not hit the bottom yet.
Yeah.
Now, think about this. In the same time period, BYD, what are they doing? Like 2-3 million cars a year now? They're pumping them out. And remember, folks, BYD is part owned by Warren Buffett. Don't think that guy's an idiot, because he's not.
Well,
we know we're from Omaha.
We can attribute some of that to Charlie.
Yeah, well, and Charlie Munger was probably a really big driver in that. But
I should point out that at the same time that Tesla came out with their numbers, apparently BYD has come out with theirs. And according to snatches of what I heard, Tesla may recapture the EV leadership, because numbers are down for BYD in China.
So in 2023, the Chinese New Year was in January. This year it was in February. And so February numbers for BYD sucked. And I had a viewer point that out to me in one of our comments on one of the YouTube videos, and I went looking at it, and it's like, oh, well, they did. Year over year, BYD had a drop for February. But I don't think that's really slowing them down.
Oh, no, I'm not saying slowing them down. It's just that that the scuttlebutt now is that at least for this quarter, despite apparent questions about what Tesla is doing, that the leadership cap, right, the yellow jersey, the E-race is going to pass over to Tesla this time. So I don't know. We'll see. So
just kind of continuing it, Ford is operating at just 25% of its plant capacity. Jeep's China joint venture went bankrupt in October of 22, despite operating in the world's largest SUV market. Now, I've said before, Stellantis is doing a crappy job with Jeep. They are not doing that brand justice, and there are 6 months of Jeep inventory sitting at dealerships all over the planet. That's the average right now. There's probably never been a better time to go out and buy a Jeep brand, because they haven't been on sale ever.
And they have a plug-in hybrid version, by the way. So
well, and they've got some electric. I've started getting pop-up ads now for electric Grand Cherokees and stuff like that. The stupid thing is, they're starting at like $65,000. I'm like, come on, folks.
That problem where they're going too high.
Don't think.
Can't afford it.
I mean, you can. I think you can get a low-end Model X for that price. And it's just really hard to. I mean, Tesla has really entrenched them. And I've actually started seeing Tesla ads now. But a big thing Tesla puts in their ads: we are the only 100, or we're the closest to a 100% American-made car of any car manufacturer. It used to be Volkswagen. Volkswagen used to have the highest percentage of American-made components, and now, which was really, kind of funny because so many of the big three have a lot of their products made in Canada or Mexico or stuff like that. And it was Volkswagen that was the most
technically
for a
that's
while.
still American.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, one of we did try to take them over back in 1812. That when we invaded them, that didn't go too well.
That's an interesting war.
Yeah,
I know a little bit about that war.
Yeah, but anyways, the American car makers, which were the darlings of the Chinese economy, just are being pushed out. And it's not. Now, we talked about Buick. Buick doesn't sell EVs in the United States, but they have 4 EV models in the Chinese market, and they sell well there. And Buick does well over there. And it's really weird to think about. But anyways, I thought that was an interesting story. This gentleman was putting his viewpoint on. So anyways, let's talk about Xiaomi. Now, Xiaomi is a company I'm not familiar with. I know they are a Chinese smartphone maker. I don't think the brand. Do they sell the phones in the U.S.?
They make.
I don't think they. Oh, they make appliances.
They're sort of like the Samsung of China. But
they don't sell in North America, or they don't sell in the United States. I don't think.
No.
Okay, so they decided to launch their first EV. Let me see if I can get some picture. The SU7, which is a weird name because it would make you think it was an SUV, but it's a sedan. And
did you see this? Is everybody else don't listen anymore? I sent you an email regarding.
Oh, that does look like my shirt. And man, I could hide in that car. Oh, that's a BYD. Let's see. This isn't the best picture of it. I have.
I've got one on the website.
Hold on. I've got more.
Yeah, there's
I have multiple
out there.
Articles on Xiaomi today. It's this one here. It's not the Volvo advertisement I have on the right, but so their shares are on the stock market are up 16% after they launched the first EV. And in the first 24 hours, they got 89,000 pre-orders. And what did you say, Bill? They capped it off at 150,000?
And they have stopped taking orders. And they're telling customers, sorry, we're doing so well, but you won't be able to get your car for a year now.
Well, I mean, we all know with the Tesla Cybertruck, we're talking, most people aren't going to be able to get it for a year anyways. It just some people have already gotten it.
With 36,000, no, what was it?
It was 89,000 pre-orders the first 24 hours. Minutes? Oh yeah, it was insane numbers.
First 36 hours. I'm sorry, the first 36 hours.
It's priced at $4,000 less than the Model 3.
Yep.
And it's supposed to have longer driving range. Oh, it had 50,000 orders in the first 27 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's just crazy. But it is weird. I mean, that photo is okay, but it doesn't do it justice. Think of the Porsche Cayenne, right? Or Taycan, or the Panamera. It looks like it's very similar to those designs, but for a lot less money. $30,000 they figure, in comparable. It won't be on sale here yet, but $30,000 and you get a car that performs as well, if not better, supposedly. I'm waiting to get people to actually get out and test drive it. That's what we got to. That's what American car makers are going to have to deal with.
Yeah. So Plug Seeker, they are tightening emissions controls, but I don't know when they're going to be there. But I think that China is going to get there pretty much voluntarily. The people want it. They live in cities that are disgustingly covered in smog and pollution, and people want to breathe better.
Pollution across China, and I would say probably 2/3 of that country are the people that live in that country live in terrible, polluted environments, just horrible.
Yeah. So Here's something kind of we were talking a little bit ago about BYD's numbers and all that. So for March, BYD sold 139,900 battery electric vehicles and 161,000 plug-in hybrids. It was from the previous month of March, the previous year, it was a 14% increase.
Mm.
So they had shown a massive increase in January, but the previous January had been that Chinese New Year. And then February, they showed reduction. But I get people all the time trying to point out to me, if a company in the EV business, if their numbers go backwards 1 month, that's the end. That's the
Right.
end.
Exactly.
I see it all the time. A
Yeah.
company cannot have their numbers slip up a little bit, or I just get abuse on the YouTube channel.
Oh yeah.
So
It's a passing fad. It's not going to stay around. No, sorry, folks. It's going to be here. It's going to be the way. Eventually, if you don't drive that, I guarantee you, your kids. If you're a young adult and you've got toddlers coming up, I guarantee you, they are never going to drive a gasoline-powered vehicle. They're only going to drive electric, and I can say that I think with some authority because I got a neighbor over here with 2 little kids, and guess what they like to ride around in? Little electric toy cars.
Right. Now this does look a little bit like a Porsche Taycan.
Yeah, it does. Yep.
Yeah, very similar styling.
Not a fan of that color, but good looking.
Why? I think it's a great color, Bill. I could be totally camouflaged.
Yeah, exactly.
Against that, people wouldn't see me near that. Yeah.
Well, the British have come up with a cloak of invisibility. Have you seen that?
Oh no.
Yeah, they've actually come up with a cloak of invisibility. So hey, who knows what's next out of Harry Potter?
This one's kind of funny, and I really don't know what to think of this article. This is coming to us from a website called Washington Monthly. Not really familiar with this, but China just attacked Biden's electric vehicle policy. That's good news for Biden.
That's an interesting article. That's why I put it up.
Yeah. So what's interesting is the IRA, or the Inflation Reduction Act, basically incentivizes people to buy EVs that don't use components from China. And that also is interesting in that we get a lot of flack about, we don't want the Chinese EV makers in the United States. And, I've mentioned this a lot. I think we need to protect the big 3 automakers in the US just because of how entrenched they are in society.
Exactly. How many families and businesses.
Yeah, because it's not
car makers, but support that.
Yeah, your Mopars and everything else that support that. Mind you, we have a lot of other companies make cars in the United States. I mean, every Japanese and Korean brand manufactures cars in the United States now.
German.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you've got BMW, Mercedes. There are lots of others. Volkswagen. They all manufacture cars in the United States, and we'd like to keep it that way. But it would really hurt to see. I don't know if I'd really be that disappointed to see Stellantis go out of business, but it would be kind of painful to see Ford and GM go out of business.
Yeah.
Chrysler just, since Lee Iacocca, they always seem to just disappoint. And outside of
Lee
the
hasn't
Jeep
been
brand.
around for a while, so.
Yeah, well, that was a long damn time ago, right?
That was run by.
That was in the 80s.
Well, yeah, but the company was then run by Senator Romney's dad for a while, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyways, the Chinese government on Tuesday lodged a formal complaint against the U.S. with the World Trade Organization, complaining that the Inflation Reduction Act inappropriately excludes electric cars with Chinese components from the law's tax credit program. And it's kind of funny. Biden should be thrilled. Trump has been trying to turn Biden's EV strategy into a political liability, using absurdly violent language to argue it will destroy the American auto industry. Well, it's true. if the Chinese are able to just come over here and sell unabated, I mean, when we've covered, what was it, a $5,000 car? I mean, people are going to buy that just to, you know, to have something.
That'll be the car for the daughter to run back and forth to school, or the son to run to his part-time job. So yeah.
Right. And
at least that's the plan. But I'll bet you what happens is they'll find out, damn, this is a pretty good little car and it doesn't cost us anything to run it. Maybe I'll let them use the big gas guzzler and pay for that, and I'll drive this one back and forth to work.
Right. And that's probably what would happen. We covered even the Elf bike. It's $10,000.
Yeah.
And it's just basically an e-bike that's enclosed. It gives you some protection, more protection than a regular bike does, but it's $10,000. And some of these cars that BYD's coming out with, and some that are starting to be below 10 grand, it's just nuts.
Just don't know how are they doing that? How are they doing that?
Well, it's the innovations. It's everything from this
computer.
It's the skateboard chassis. Yeah. It's how there's just so few components. They don't have to be buying as many parts spread out amongst so many auto, OEM manufacturers for their pieces. And it's just getting simplistic, and then basically we kind of regressed down to where we're now taking a golf cart, electric golf cart, and just upgrading it.
Scaling it up. Yeah.
Yeah, and scaling it in reverse, as opposed to taking some of the crazy complicated gas cars that are out today and trying to back them out. I had somebody actually ask on a comment about should they be afraid to go buy a Jeep on sale, and is Stellantis going to go out of business? But even if they did go out of business, they'd still be covered. So there's consumer protections for that. Although I think this particular person might have been in another country, but I'm sure that country probably has similar protections.
Did you know that there is a company in the Philippines that is still making World War II Willys Jeeps by hand?
And wow!
You can buy it, and it'll show up in a crate, and you just take it out and you assemble it, and I think the one particular model I saw, you had to basically have, the engine for it and some drivetrain, but everything else came there. The seats, the shovels, the tires, the whole
I remember
thing.
In the TV show MASH, one of the cast was shipping a Jeep back to his hometown in the US one piece at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you'd be able to rebuild one to have a car after the war.
That wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, an acquaintance of mine, in whose house I once stayed, his father was the director of that show.
So, Plug, I think there's definitely a parallel to how we think about Chinese cars now. So we used to think as everything that came from Japan as being low quality, but this is something that Musk has talked about. He said they're making high quality EVs. They are really becoming the big leagues of the electric vehicle business. And so, and you listen to the CEO of BYD, he says he's not looking at Tesla. He's trying to compete with Toyota. It's like some of these cheaper cars, they're trying to make them so that they can outsell the Toyota Corolla. And what we're not seeing yet is any of these folks coming out with a truck, and it's just interesting to see where some of this goes. But I think that the Chinese EV manufacturers, some of them are probably going to be crap. I mean, you look at the stuff we saw with the Fisker, the people complaining about the build quality of the Fisker Ocean. And it's like, but we're not hearing this so much about the Chinese manufacturers.
Not now. Now, I will take you back again 20 years, and I got to see some of the very first Chinese cars imported into Mexico City. And those cars had just come in off the boat and they were rust all over them. They were, it's what you would expect from a company that has just moved out of the bicycle age and trying to make cars, and this was their first attempt at it. And they were cheap, because they were looking at selling them to lower income people in Mexico City. So they have come, and even BYD with some of their very first vehicles, they weren't all that good a quality, but now they're get from the I haven't had a chance to view any of those cars personally, but from the reviews that I'm reading, there's a lot of positive response to what we're seeing, and I don't think they're the same quality of that junk that I saw being imported into Mexico City.
So I don't, we got a question about Toyota. So I don't really think Toyota's in danger. I think some of the things you see in the news about Toyota are complete BS. So while you hear this stuff about where Chairman Toyota says that only 30% of cars will end up being EVs, at the same time, they've just invested, $30 billion into manufacturing batteries out on the East Coast of the United States. And then they're now putting the Toyota Hilux, which is the best-selling truck in the world, but it isn't sold in North America. They're releasing it as an EV. It's going to be basically a $25,000 electric truck and be the Warlord EV. They can all mount their machine gun on the top of the cab, and they can ride around, and they can have a little solar power, and they can power up, and
until they run out of juice. And where do you charge it?
That's why they have solar.
Well, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I just saw a story about a lady who had her Tesla. I think it was out in California. Had her Tesla stolen, and they recovered it after the battery had run dead.
Oh wow! And they probably didn't know how to charge it.
No.
The funny thing is, they could have went to any Tesla supercharger and just plugged it in, and it would have just started charging.
They're dumb thieves,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, but I don't know how you would have kept the car going. So, because the car, if you don't have the phone near it, it's got to have, some issues, right?
Yep. Yep.
So I don't know completely how that goes, but
they may have used one of those. Maybe not so dumb. They used one of those. One of the hacking devices you can get now. So
yeah. So Exceeder, the company I've told you about,
I have to. By the way, I've got a conference to run to. So if you want to keep going, that's fine. I'm going to have to bow out. So
okay. All right. Well, I think we've covered enough for today's episode, Bill. We ran a little bit early today. No. Anyways, good luck at your conference today.
Thank you.
And folks, thanks for chiming in. And then we'll be back tomorrow with engineer Mike Herzog. Otherwise, folks, have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye.